I spent over $1,000 on Nintendo Switch 2 games. You heard me, $1,000. I have no money. What have I done? Since the Switch 2 launched, there have been a hearty amount of Switch 2 games released, and I'm on a mission to play all of them. I'm serious. And I'll be ranking them on the Game Gauge. We love the Game Gauge. I also made a little graphic for it. It's nice. So let's get playing. Star Wars Outlaws. I like Star Wars. This is a current gen game. It didn't release on PS4 or Xbox One because those consoles simply couldn't handle it. So the fact that it's on the Switch 2 now makes me nervous, but I gotta say, I'm impressed. The game released last year and got some pretty decent scores. I was really interested in checking it out, but I just didn't. But that's good, because now this time, for the first time, I can experience it on the Switch 2. The game itself is pretty fun. It's a straightforward, story-driven game where you fight enemies, sneak through levels, and have wars in the sky, as the title suggests. It even has a massive open world you can explore and speed around, which is already just kind of impressive on a handheld console. My boys, look at this. Look at me go. Now, the story is okay. It feels a little forced at times, no pun intended. And to be honest, it's a little hard to follow, but maybe I just don't have the brain capacity to figure it all out, which is a possibility. But the most impressive thing about this port is the performance. When I first played it at PAX West, I thought it was pretty rough. But after experiencing the full game here and playing for a few hours, I was absolutely floored by how good it ran. Now, it only runs at 30 frames per second, but it's locked there. For 99% of the time, it was solid. On top of that, the resolution is high enough, between 1080p and 1440p. And a lot of the graphically intensive effects like textures, lighting, and shadows all seem to be cranked up as well. Obviously, it doesn't look as good as the PS5 or anything, but for a handheld, I can't ask for more than this. Well, I could, but I shouldn't. Also, the attention to detail in the graphics are kind of concerning. I shot this plant and it actually burned and fell apart. This is why these games cost so much to make. What the heck? The Switch 2 version also has all the DLC and only costs $60. But it's Ubisoft, so I mean, it's bound to go on sale in the near future. Come on, that's just how it is with them. So I recommend checking it out, but maybe just wait a little bit for a sale. I pay for this in full so that you know my opinion as soon as possible. You can thank me by subscribing. This is my finger that's pointing at you to subscribe, please. I would really appreciate that. I also respect the amount of optimization that was made for the Switch 2 version. Obviously, the graphics and performance are great for the system, but it even uses features like the gyro on the console. This is a solid experience. The gameplay is good, it's nice and stealthy. The full game is here. The story is okay. And if you like Star Wars, this is Star Wars in video game form, and I liked it. Honestly, I gotta give this an 8. It's poppin'. Shadow Labyrinth. When I first heard of this game, it genuinely felt like a prank. I didn't understand it at all. It wasn't just a spooky game, it was a Pac-Man game. That's right, remember that yellow dot who likes to eat the pills? Now, Pac-Man is just really edgy. Bro must have got dumped for real. When this first got revealed, I thought it was a simple 2D side-scroller where you played as some hash-slinging slasher. But it's actually a Metroidvania. Like, this actually gave me Metroid Dread vibes. But it costs less and has Pac-Man somehow. You play as this dark figure who runs around levels and has a massive sword that you can beat enemies with. And the combat is very satisfying. You can swing your sword in the air, on the ground, really anywhere. The movement is also peak. It's pretty quick-paced and the controls are tight, and the overall moveset is much better than I expected. There are even some segments of the levels where you can turn into Mr. Waka Waka himself. And in this game, he's known as Puck. I have no idea what the lore is there, but Mrs. Pac-Man must have did him dirty if he had to change his name. Just saying. Throughout the game, you can collect these little orb thingies and upgrade certain elements of your character. This gives you a better sense of progression the further and further you get into the game. One of the craziest things about this game is the price. I expected a lot less for what the price is at $30. In today's day and age, that's unheard of. The crazier thing is that this game can still run on the Switch 1, and the Switch 2 edition is free if you buy the Switch 1 edition of the game, which I did. With the shorter amount of time I played with this, I've been really enjoying it. If you're looking for something cheap to play on the Switch 2, this is a very unique experience to test out, especially if you have a craving for Metroidvanias. But the real question is, what does the Game Gauge say? 7.1, okay, I'll take it. However, I can't talk about the Pac-Man Metroidvania without talking about the most anticipated Metroidvania of the century. And that's right, we gotta talk about Hollow Knight Silksong. Seriously, if you've ever been in a game presentation chat like a Nintendo Direct or the Game Awards, you know that everyone kept spamming for Silksong. At first, I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it, because when Nintendo invited me out to play it at PAX West, I wasn't a huge fan. But I chalked that up to 2 reasons. I had never played the first Hollow Knight game, and this really isn't the type of game that you can fully understand and get in 15 minutes, which was the length of the demo, by the way. So I did the only logical thing. I bought the first Hollow Knight game and Hollow Knight Silksong to give it the proper chance. And my boys, I get it now. After spending time with the first Hollow Knight game, I was hooked enough to jump right into Silksong. And before even talking about gameplay, can I just quickly mention the price? It's only $20. How is this possible? For one of the most hyped games of all time? That's unreal, but I'll get back to that. Gameplay-wise, it's a Metroidvania with Souls-like DNA. You explore 2D maps, fight bosses, find secrets, collect different currencies, and upgrade Hornet, the playable character. Every upgrade makes exploration more rewarding, as you can revisit earlier areas to unlock new paths and take on tougher enemies. The pacing feels perfect, and honestly, I just want to play this all day. That is rare for me. I know I play a lot of video games, but having one that hooks me that I want to play it over any other game and just all day, I mean, come on now. And on the Switch 2, this feels like the best way to play it. I spent most of my time handheld, and it just felt right. It even supports up to 120 frames per second, and even has some of the best feeling HD rumble I've ever seen. Or felt. The art style is another reason why it stands out so much. It's not like super graphically intense, but it's also very flashy with all of its effects. It's cartoony, but gritty, giving it an eerie, suspenseful vibe. And now, I'm not super deep into the lore, but I still ate the story up like a meal. Now, my only real issue with this game was that I got stuck quite a bit, but it turns out that's on me. I didn't unlock the map or compass fast enough, which makes navigating way easier. Now, I'm not normally one to like Metroidvanias. The only others I really enjoyed were Metroid Dread and Samus Returns, but Silksong hooked me. Just going through the levels and discovering new things and pathways was so satisfying. But even more satisfying are those bosses. There are so many bosses in here, and they all have patterns that you can try and master, and once you figure out the patterns of a boss and then destroy it, it's just, oh, it's so good. And the movement, it's so graceful and it just fits so well. And it's much better than Shadow Labyrinth, I'm gonna be honest. And again, it's only $20. This feels wrong. You know what, I recommend this even if you're not into this genre, because worst case, it's not a huge loss if you do spend your money on it. Like, yes, $20 is $20, but I mean, Mario Kart is $80, Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70, Metroid Dread is $60. $20, and this game is just as good as all the other ones I just mentioned. I mean, come on, you just gotta do it, unless you're really against it. I respect to the devs for delivering something this good at this price. It's crazy. But you know what? The game gauge? The game gauge has 9.5. Oh my goodness. That's one of the highest numbers I've seen on this game gauge. I didn't even know it could go that high. Well, I did know it could go that high. Next up, Survival Kids. This will forever be the game that reminds me of the Switch 2 Direct crashing. This game is based on one that originally released on the Game Boy, which I never even knew existed. But hey, now I can experience the remake on Switch 2. I hope it's good. The game focuses on local co-op for up to 4 players. You solve simple puzzles on islands, stuff like carrying wood to the right spot or cooking food to keep your stamina up. The only real goal is finishing levels within a time limit. With local co-op, it's meant to feel frantic and fun. Too bad I have no friends. Going in, I wasn't really excited. The look and premise didn't sound appealing at all. Don't even get me started on the graphics. It looks cheap. My first impression was how bad it looked. Seriously, how could this not run on Switch 1? But once I actually booted it up, I found it somewhat fun. Okay, I'll admit it. The controls and gameplay loop are very straightforward and easy to understand. I'll give it credit for that, especially if you do have people to play it with. Unlike me. But while the loop can be fun, I don't think it's exactly worth the current price, especially with these graphics. I enjoyed the first level I played, but after that, I had no desire to go back. My experience probably would have been different with friends though, I'm not gonna lie. Still, if you're a fan of couch co-op games like Overcooked or It Takes Two, you might get something out of this. So, I don't know, I guess just wait for a sale. But I'm giving this 5 out of 10. No Man's Sky. I actually did a full video on this and you can check it out after this video. And let me just break it down a little bit really quickly. It's a survival game in space. You can craft, fly, explore, play online with others. There's a ton to do and it just keeps getting bigger with every update. The first time I played was on Switch 1, which honestly was a miracle port. I have no clue how they could get this running. There were of course compromises, like it was capped at 30 frames per second, low resolution, no online multiplayer, but overall it was a solid way to play such a massive game. And now on the Switch 2, if you've already owned the Switch 1, you get a free upgrade, which is a huge bonus. Most Switch games make you pay for the enhanced edition, but not here. And I'll be honest, even after playing both versions, I still find the game complicated at times. There's just a lot to manage, collect, and craft, but there's also fun for a lot of people. It can get super in-depth, and I respect that. They even just launched a brand new update, which is just, oh my goodness. The Switch 2 version finally gets up to 60 frames per second, or an uncapped frame rate, and there's multiplayer unlike the Switch 1. You know what, just go watch my full video. I really liked it, and you know what? This is what I'm giving it, an 8 out of 10. I like it. Next up, Madden 26. Why did I pay $70 for this? I don't even know how to play football. Does it look like I understand sports? I didn't think so. As a non-football fan, I don't want to roast it too hard here, but I gotta say, is most of the gameplay seriously just picking strategies for plays and then running for less than 5 seconds before getting tackled? Is that all this is? Maybe I just don't understand, but from a gameplay perspective, this is boring. Come on! Now, from a graphical perspective though, which I can see with my eyeballs, I'm pretty disappointed. Now, it looks fine during some cinematic shots, but when you're actually playing, it looks pretty bad. The resolution is low enough that it's hard to read the names on the jerseys. The textures on the field are flat, and worst of all, it's 30 frames per second. How? Tell me how this can't run at 60. It's not that graphically intense, and it's not like it's a massive open world. It's a single condensed field. I don't get it. I feel like they just kind of quickly made some graphical changes in the settings and then threw it on the Switch 2 with no optimization at all. I didn't know the game gauge could get this low, but this is a 2. I'm sorry, game gauge, especially with that absurd price. Tomagotchi Plaza. Oh my goodness, someone help me. This is a kid's game, and well, I played it. Tamagotchis are those little keychain things that you tried to keep alive. I never had one, but now there's a game. So next best thing, I guess. This is technically a Switch 2 game, but it also has a Switch 1 version, which makes sense because you cannot tell me this couldn't run on the first console. The Switch 2 edition doesn't add much besides slightly better visuals and performance, but even then, it's ugly. Garbage textures, low poly models, it just looks rough. The gameplay loop is simple. You wander around a plaza and play mini games. That's it. Little rhythm games, simple cooking, just small activities with very little depth. You can earn gold and upgrade the plaza, sure, but it's very shallow overall. And look, I'm obviously not the target audience here, or at least I hope not, but I can see very young kids liking this. Not just because of the flashing colors, but because it's easy. Very easy. For me though, it's not it. 4 of 10. Now what about Wild Hearts S? Ah yes, the knockoff Monster Hunter. I finally played it and at first glance, it was fine. It runs at 60 frames per second most of the time, so right away, I gotta give them some gold stars for that. The game revolves around fighting monsters and that's about all I got from it. There's a story, but I didn't find it very interesting. In fact, it was kind of quirky and complicated to the point where I just stopped caring. Now, I always try to give these games a fair shot, but this one was just weird. I did love the massive monster battles, and the performance, like I said, is solid, but the art style wasn't shown off well using the Switch 2's hardware. Hair looked grainy, textures were overly smooth, and some assets looked very low poly. Now, Wild Hearts isn't just on the Switch 2. It released originally as just Wild Hearts without the S. For some reason on the Switch 2 version, they added the S. Maybe for Switch. Who knows? It's all basically the same game as the original Wild Hearts that released not that long ago. You fight dragons, you make some weapons, but the Switch 2 version supports up to 4-player co-op, which is one more than the original. The problem is that while all the post-launch content is here, it comes with the usual compromises. Like I said, downgraded textures, poppin', frame rate hiccups, and oh yeah, it doesn't do crossplay, which I didn't really expect, but most games have that nowadays. So while it's playable and the big hunts are fun, for me, it's not really my kind of game. But if you're into giant monster hunts, it works on Switch 2. Just not the best version, unless you desperately need that extra co-op slot or something. I don't know. Or a game gauge. Yeah, 5. This is 5. Next up, chillin' by the fire. Don't you love chillin' by the fire? Me too. But most importantly, I like seeing things burn. That's my only proof of being a male. Anyway, there's now a game on the eShop that lets you live out all your fire chillin' dreams. Burning wood, roasting marshmallows, and most importantly, hanging with your buddies. I actually got fellow YouTuber M Swizzle in on the action. Not against his will either. He was just the only other person willing to cough up $10 for the experience. So yes, you can play with friends just building a fire, and that's literally the main purpose of this game. But it's also one of the few games that actually makes use of game chat. You join games through it, and if you've got a camera attached, there's a cursed little floating version of you walking around tossing stuff into a fire. It looks weird, but it's kind of cool. The game even throws in conversation starters to help you actually, talk to people you're playing with. Plus you can upgrade your gear the bigger your fire gets. It's simple, but I actually got caught up in it. For the price, that's 7.8 energy right there. I'm feeling it. Speaking of weird Japanese games, Kitugami. Oh my. This one's really strange and kind of obscure. It's part action game, part tower defense. I actually liked the combat and it was better than I expected, but at the same time, it's just one of those really weird games with odd lore that I couldn't take seriously or wrap my head around the premise. You play as this guy named So, and during the day, you run around rescuing villagers and assigning them jobs like archers or woodcutters, basically prepping for the doom that comes at night. And then when night comes, these little monster guys start pouring out of the gates, and you have to protect this shrine doing some weird things. So the game flips between daytime strategy and nighttime combat, which is a cool idea, even if it feels a little strange in practice. The whole experience was better than I thought it would be, but it still looked pretty janky in spots. Good enough, but definitely not pushing the Switch 2 in any crazy way. This is one of those games I really can't recommend unless you're specifically into this type of game. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say about it, to be honest. Graphically, it looks pretty okay. It runs at 30 frames per second. The motion blur looks good. The textures are fine. I gotta give this a 5. I don't really know what to rank it, to be honest. Next up, Guardians of Azimma. Okay, I really tried to get into this one, guys. The opening was packed with cutscenes. The story felt really weird. If you like Guardians of Azimma, let me know in the comments why you like it. I'm very curious. Next up, Dear Me I Was. This is one of the cheapest Switch 2 exclusives you can buy. But is that for a reason? It's made by the same team behind Another Code, which was published by Nintendo back in 2024. This feels like their little passion project, and honestly, it's barely even a game. I touched the controller maybe 10 times in this 45-minute experience. It's essentially an interactive story about life. You play as a girl from a young age and watch her story unfold, with tiny mini-games sprinkled in, if you even want to call it that. Sometimes you paint pictures using the Joy-Con's mouse mode. Sometimes you eat food. And that's about it. It's basically a picture book. And yeah, it gets sad sometimes, so consider yourself warned. More than one person dies, I'll say that much. There's death involved. Just saying. I probably wouldn't have bought this if not for making this video, and now the game gauge is gonna come out and cook it. 4. I'd probably rate it lower if I hadn't streamed it, so thank you all for joining stream. That was fun to experience it with you. Next up is Bravely Default. This is just a 3DS game that has been up-resed for the Switch 2, and it looks so bad. Like, genuinely janky to the point where I couldn't bring myself to even care or want to play it and experience it. It has this 3D model playing on this weird drawn 2D map that just looks so janky and AI upscale. You know what I mean? I know it's not always about graphics, and I really do want to try to give every game a fair shot, but come on! Why would I sink hours into something that looks like this when there are so many better options? It just turned me off right away. I really didn't even play it for that long. That said, it's not all trash. There are mini games in this that use the Switch 2's mouse mode that are actually pretty interesting. There's one rhythm game where you use both mouses or mice. I'm pretty sure if we talk about the two Switch 2 mouses, it's called mouses, not mice. Prove me wrong. But use both the mouses to draw a line and keep this bubble in the center. And it's all good and fun. I mean, it's a really weird rhythm game, but it's quirky enough to enjoy. But the real standout is this ship minigame where you're inside a cockpit full of switches and levers, trying to keep it from crashing while staying on course. You can adjust the height of the ship, steer, swat away enemies, and it really makes use of both sides of your brain with the dual mouse controls. This one's actually pretty fun. I like this one. But outside of those, the main game just isn't good. Okay, the game gauge is 6 of 10. And that's only because of the mini-games. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3+4, Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Ah yes, skateboarding. I love it, virtually, because I've tried in real life and it just doesn't go well. This is a remake of the classic Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 from the early 2000s. And I don't think I ever played these games back in the day, but I'm no newbie. I had 1+2 on the Switch 1. And believe it or not, 3+4 also released on Switch 1 somehow. Oh my goodness gracious. It runs on the Switch 1, that's all I'll say. But the Switch 2, however, is very solid. It doesn't hit PS5 level graphics or anything, but it looks sharp and generally runs well, outside of some performance hiccups at launch, which I'm sure will get patched at some point. The game itself is still really fun. You got multiple skate parks to mess around in, with challenges like collecting the skate letters or hitting high score goals within the time limit. There's even customizations for your skater. And yes, I'm literally playing as Doom Guy. This does not feel right. It's honestly a perfect handheld game. Quick bursts of gameplay, solid story mode, and that classic Tony Hawk feel. Plus, it's not even a full $60, and knowing Activision, it'll probably go on sale pretty soon. So 7.9. Yeah, not bad. Next up, Street Fighter 6. This is technically the most expensive game I own that's on the Switch 2. Why? Because it's one of the very few Nintendo Switch 2 games with exclusive amiibo, and as you can see, I have them all. Yeah, this game technically cost me this much. Oh, this is the classic 2D fighter, and you either love it or you have no idea how to play. I'm one of the people that really don't have that many of an idea to play. I don't even know if that was English that I said there. Thankfully, Street Fighter 6 has a new modern control scheme that makes things way less complicated. It's still kind of confusing for my little brain, but at least I know what I need to know. Now, I mainly stuck to the story mode because I'd rather play that than get obliterated online or get someone else that doesn't know how to play Street Fighter to play Street Fighter with me. You can upgrade your custom character and play through what some would call a story, but the game itself looks good and runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, except for in the story mode for some reason. It runs at 30. Capcom also did this quirky thing where they added split Joy-Con controls where you just vigorously shake the controller to win. It sucks, but at least they tried to optimize the Switch 2 to make it unique in some way, comparing it to the other current gen consoles. But the game, if you've never played a Street Fighter before, this is actually a good starting point, and I really like it. The Switch 2 version does the game justice. I like it. 8. I'm giving it an 8. Sonic X Shadow Generations. This game was fantastic back in 2011, and it still holds up today. Honestly, this might be my favorite Sonic game of all time, and a lot of fans would agree. It got a remaster in late 2024 on more powerful consoles, and even made it to Switch 1. That version was still better than the original, but still capped at 30 frames per second, and it was how I experienced it the first time. And thankfully, the Switch 2 runs better than the Switch 1. This new edition runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second, and even the new Shadow Generations mode is impressively stable. What's even more wild is that this is one of the few Switch 2 games with both graphics and performance modes, 30 frames per second at a higher resolution, or performance mode for higher frame rates. This is easily the best handheld version of the game, but there's one problem. No free upgrade. If you own the Switch 1 version, you still gotta rebuy it. And you can even carry over your old save from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2, which makes it even more confusing in my opinion. There's some really fantastic, fast-paced 3D platforming in this game, and honestly, much more impressive 2D platforming in this game. So if you like the fast gameplay, you should definitely check it out. Aside from the free upgrade thing, I gotta give this like an 8.5. I think it was really great. Kirby and the Forgotten Land Switch 2 edition, on the other hand, is kind of bonkers. I hate the word bonkers. That's honestly kind of cringe. Anyways, this is one of my absolute favorites. You might already know my thoughts on the Star-Crossed Worlds DLC because I made a whole video on it, so check it out after this. But I'm gonna briefly talk about it in this video anyways because I need to hit my $1,000 somehow. This is a 3D Kirby game that now plays at a higher resolution and 60 frames per second, unlike the Switch 1's 30. And man, what a huge difference. I couldn't imagine it at 30 frames per second. The main premise is saving Waddle Dees. As you go through stages, you find them and complete challenges to collect even more. The more Waddle Dees you rescue, the better your Waddle Dee time becomes. Classic power-ups return, and you can even upgrade them multiple times to absolutely wreck enemies. There's quick time challenges as well, local co-op with the epic goat bandana Waddle Dee. Oh, what a Chad. And of course, Kirby is still an absolute cutie. I could give him a good kiss and share my health. If you know, you know. The Switch 2 edition also includes the Star-Crossed World DLC, as I explained, which essentially makes the base game flashier, replaces Waddle Dees with these things called Starries, and even adds more mouthful mode abilities. Here's the rank on the game gauge. Oh wait, no it's not. You have to go watch my full review to find out my ranking on the game gauge. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. I've never been a huge fan of these games, but I had to test it. And yep, it's Tetris. That's right, both Puyo Puyo and Tetris. Two absolute classics. I lean more towards Puyo Puyo, but hey, I won't judge. The gameplay loop is obvious. Match colors, clear lines. Sure, there's strategy, but does it look like I care about strategy? I don't. That said, I wasn't a huge fan of this game. I played it for maybe an hour, and I don't think I'll ever go back, but that's just me. This version has tons of modes and ways to play with friends and family, and of course, Sonic is in this game. And you know me, I love Sonic. But I gotta give this like a 6. It's Tetris and Puyo Puyo. Now, have you ever wanted to play basketball wheelchair without being in a wheelchair and online with your Switch 2 mouse controls? Yeah. Me too. Well, now you can. Yippee. I already did a full review on this one as well, so you get the idea, but honestly, I think this game got way too much hate. People flamed it for not being enough, for being too bland, and I totally see their perspective, but I really enjoyed my time with it. Anyways, my game gauge score is in the full-length video that I made on it as well. Next up, Split Fiction. Now, I've talked about Split Fiction before, and I'll talk about it again because I like it. It's a fantastic game. Unique mechanics, strong story, and designed to be played with someone else. Easily one of my favorites. The Switch 2 version is solid, but it's not perfect. It looks good, though the resolution is lower than on PS5 or Xbox Series. The frame rate is capped at 30 frames per second docked, and oddly, 60 frames per second in handheld, with some graphical sacrifices. So it's a mixed bag. On one hand, I love being able to play handheld or online co-op on the couch. And on the other, the cinematic presentation would obviously look sharper on a higher end console and just more impressive. But the core game is still amazing. I talk more about it in my 1 month review, so if you want to hear more about my opinion on it, go check it out there. But for now, I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. That's pretty good. Good job, Game Gauge. I love it. Now we gotta talk about Cyberpunk. It's one of those games that are so big and everyone loves, and I totally understand, but it's not for me. I better sit up. I've always wanted to dip my little tiny toes in the waters of Cyberpunk because it's just such a massive world. There's so much love around this game, and this was the perfect chance for me to play it on the Switch 2. It was perfect. I totally get the appeal. And first of all, I gotta say, this game looks gorgeous on the Switch 2. The textures and lighting are super detailed, and it even runs above 30 frames per second. Holy smokes. My one issue that I did have with it, with the frame rate, is that it did chug pretty often, but I wouldn't say it was anything unplayable. That said, I really didn't get hooked by the story. I think my brain is just a little too family friendly to be fully engaged into the story. So I honestly didn't play it for that long. That's just, I don't know. But I love how well it runs on this console. And if you're already a fan of Cyberpunk and want a portable version, this is honestly the perfect version for it. I also really like how it can take saves from cross platforms. So if you played this game on PS5 and you want to jump into a handheld version of it, you can actually load up your PS5 save onto the Switch 2, which I really appreciate. I think the game is great. I didn't play this one long enough to get a full ranking on the Game Gauge. I might come back to it at some point, but this one just isn't for me, and I hope you understand. I also really appreciate the amount of Switch 2 features that this includes, like the Joy-Con controls. You can actually like shake your Joy-Con to reload and stuff like that. It also uses the mouse controls, which are so awesome. But I don't think I played this enough to really give it a full fair ranking on the Game Gauge, so we're gonna have to let this one slide, but hey, I did buy it, and maybe I'll come back to it at some point. Fast Fusion. Once again, I've already talked about this game in my 1-month review. This game is the closest thing we're ever gonna get to a new F-Zero game. There, I said it. It was the cheapest third-party launch title for the Switch 2, and it stood out because of that, but also because it actually looks really good. It's a high-speed racing game that nails a sense of speed, sharp textures, 4K resolution, and it's even at 60 frames per second. Super smooth. And for $20, there's more content here than you'd expect. If you want a cheap racing game that looks epic, this is a good one to check out. So you know what, I gotta give it an 8. Let's go. Next up, Mario Kart World. Now, I've already made a whole video on Mario Kart World, but while you're here, I might as well say my quick opinions on it. It looks good, it plays good. My main issue is that I think there should have been more to it. Like the free roam mode, I really think that Nintendo should be more open and clear about how they plan to support the long-term game if we're paying $80 up front for it. I also hate that you can't track the amount of P-switches that you collect. Why in the world is that a thing? It's such a basic feature to have in a collect-a-thon. I don't understand why they wouldn't do that. I don't like that they're actively trying to make you play it the way they want you to play it with the online mode, and how they change that with the whole random button. If you know, you know. Yeah, so anyways, I have a full review on Mario Kart. If you want to see the Game Gauge score, you're gonna have to watch the full video, so. Move on to the next one. Next up, Ruffy's Riverside. Now, okay, this technically isn't a Switch 2 game, but it came out right after the console launched, and apparently it does have some performance improvements, so I'll talk about it quick. It's a 3D platformer that gives me major Banjo-Kazooie vibes. You play as this bear, running around, solving puzzles by swapping out textures on different elements to change the world. There are neat puzzles sprinkled throughout, and overall, it's just got a really charming vibe. The tutorial drags on a bit too long, but once it gets going, it's genuinely fun, especially if you're into 3D platformers. It's not super expensive either, so it's easy to justify at least trying it out. The art style also kind of gives me Paper Mario vibes. This game is very vibey. That said, even though this technically is a Switch game, the performance was pretty rough, and I played it on the Switch too, so I don't understand why. It doesn't feel fully optimized, which holds it back a bit. But overall, I think this is a 7. It's solid, but could have definitely been a little bit smoother. Hitman. I got Hitman. I started playing it and it looks visually solid. I'm a family-friendly channel, and man, it's goofy, but a little too violent for me. I can't rate this on the Games Gauge either, but I did buy it. All right, next up is Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. Okay, so this one I didn't make a full video on, and honestly, I just didn't think it was worth talking about. This game is pure mediocrity. I put off playing it for a while, but eventually I played it with some other YouTubers, and honestly, I don't think I've ever been more disappointed in a game that Nintendo released, at least in recent years. There are a few good things here, like the mouse mini games, which are genuinely creative, but there aren't very many of them. Same goes for the mic and camera mini games. Very interesting ideas, but way too few, and also it feels like I'm playing on like the PS1 iToy. But specifically the online play was a complete disaster, especially with the mouse mini games. It's just janky and slow and basically pointless if you're trying to take the game seriously. The biggest issue though is the lack of meaningful Nintendo Switch 2 Edition updates. When you boot up the game, you're forced to pick between the base Jamboree release on Switch 1 and the new Jamboree TV mode on the Switch 2. But if you click the base game, it's literally just the original, with zero upgrade, no resolution bump, no graphical touch-ups, nothing. Every other Switch 2 edition at least has some graphical improvements, but here, they just didn't bother. And the Switch 2 version of this game costs $20 more. Unless you're a hardcore Mario Party fan fan, and especially if you don't own a camera, this just isn't worth it right now, unfortunately. So, you know what? I gotta give it just the Jamboree TV like a 5. Oof, my goodness. All right, thanks for watching. I need to go figure out how I can recoup all this money. Which one of these games are your favorite and least favorite? Let me know in the comments. Consider becoming a channel member to help me recoup the money as well. They get videos early, get their name here, and exclusive content. Consider liking and subscribing. That really helps the channel out. Check out one of these videos because YouTube thinks that you're gonna wanna watch them, so you better listen. I'll see you in the next one. See you later.